Hey, and a very warm welcome to the Into the LightWeb podcast with me, your hostess, Joanna Hunter, metaphysical teacher, spiritual life and business coach, published author, and the high priestess of the LightWeb, a spiritual technology that will change your life. This is the place to be to talk everything under the LightWeb, from consciousness, relationships, to money, to spiritual business, and everything in between. Hello, it's Joanna Hunter here for another episode of Into the LightWeb. And today on my $1 Million Lab series, I am joined with Tamara Loehr. Tamara, come and introduce yourself. Tell people what it is that you do in the world and how you share your light with the world.
Oh, hello. It's so beautiful to spend time with you. I'm already a huge fan. We've got Sweden in common and crystals in common. But you know what? To be honest, I'm a country girl from Australia who managed to be self-made and, a lot of hard work and ended up an 8-figure entrepreneur. And we know how hard it is to get to 1 million, let alone to get to YPO status, which I'm sure we'll talk about. And, just a creative at heart, a singer-songwriter originally, an artist, and very much in love with the planet and everything that's clean. And, for me, it was all about creating products that I wanted, that I couldn't find, and then taking those to the world and, being authentic and showing up as a creative amongst lots of men who had MBAs. So, remaining my authentic self, even though I was like, oh my God, I'm a fraud. I don't belong here. So, really, that's my story.
I love that.
Being honest.
I love that you solved a problem for yourself first. I love that you saw something that you wanted and you were like, I want this. How can I get this? My very first businesses. So I've been an entrepreneur for 22 years. So my very first business was a brick and mortar designer clothing shop. And I live in the Highlands of Scotland. So there was no designer clothing in the Highlands of Scotland. So I remember as a little 16-year-old, we would work our Saturday jobs, save like crazy, and then book time off and then go down to Glasgow or Edinburgh and spend all our money. And blow all the money that we'd saved from our little Saturday work. Me and my friends, we would do this, And so it was when I started my business, it was bringing something that I desired to the world first and foremost. And I love that because I think that for me is an ingredient for success.
Yeah, and you know what? I've 25 years in business, so we're veterans, my dear. But you know what I really realized is I always thought my creativity was an underdog thing. I'm creative and they're academic. But as I got older, I realized I can do magic and you can't, because anyone can learn how to add shit up, but you cannot. A creative is something that we're born with. It's our genius and it's a gift. And for so long inside this business world and these ladders and all the things, that I thought was the way to do business, which I've completely thrown away. And now I do business in the feminine divine. What's interesting is I realized that now I look at all of them and I go, actually, I'm the one with the power because I'm creative. And creative people are the ones that solve the world's problems. They're great problem solvers. They see things differently. They're usually dyslexic. They usually don't know how to read numbers. They don't understand all of this sort of stuff. But who cares? Because guess what? We can pay people to do that because there's lots of them. Being a problem solver and being creative and thinking outside the box and doing the opposite, that's not my curse. That's my gift. And it took me a long time to figure that out. And a lot of businesses that I built and exited and lots of scars. So I guess, now after 25 years in business, this is very much my legacy, is how do I share that with women so they understand and enlighten men? How do I share that with people so that they realize that this isn't the sand pit that you think it is. Like, show up as yourself. Don't put these masks on and these suits on and aspire for the corner office and stuff. Just own it, because I think I would be a lot further advanced if I had a lot less scarred, perhaps, if I hadn't have felt like I needed to conform to this, how we do
status quo.
business.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Can I just go back to something that you said there? I love that you said that the creativity is the magic, right? Because it really is. Like, we're big on magic in my world, and that's really what I help people to do, is to activate their magic. But what I love is, you said you had a number of businesses. Did you do what I did, which was, I've had like lots of businesses. By the time between the age of 23 and 26, I built 4 multiple six-figure businesses, and then worked in them all. Like, so I had them all running all at the same time. So like, like jumping in at the deep end, nothing like learning to swim on the way as you're bobbing down, like sinking, learning to swim at the same time, But I beat myself up for always looking for another thing or adding another thing and stuff like that. And I think, instead of actually embracing, like you said, that's part of our genius, the fact that we can turn our hands to many things.
Yes and no. So what I think is really interesting is, I appreciate that I think creators are visionaries, but you've got to remember, in order to grow a large business and an empire, it actually needs stability. It needs structures. It needs operations. It needs all these things that you and I are both going, like, because as creatives, that doesn't really excite us. So we end up being magpies, which it doesn't actually serve us well, because we're attracted to shiny objects. So we pick up lots of things. So what I found really got me from $1 million to the 10 million to beyond, these big leaps in very short times, was my ability to stop and go, I'm a visionary. There's lots of things around me that I could create and, be involved in, but I'm going to focus on one thing. And where your focus goes, your energy flows. I'm going to focus on one thing. I'm going to bring in an integrator who does all the things that I don't want to do, which actually help drive the business as well, because it's one thing to drive it. And then having the discipline as a creative, and this is something I had to learn. It was like switching from this side of the brain to that side of the brain. I had to go, okay, you're a creative and you want to go play over here, but you don't get to play there until you've done this. So that would make me really frustrated, because I always be like, but I want to play there. And then I go, no, I have to get this business to $10 million and have the infrastructure in place to have a board and to, be able to play in that sandpit. And you know what I would do? It would happen in like 2 years, because I was like, get it done. So I learned very quickly that whilst I could have 4 or 5 businesses that were doing, good money each, they weren't still at the stage where I could scale them, because we all know that businesses that are an asset, that don't rely on you, aren't $1 million businesses. They have to go, you need to get to $1 million, and then you need to put infrastructure in place. So for me, it was very much about, okay, let's get it to that first hurdle. Let's put the infrastructure in place so I can go play. So for me as a creative, it's always like, let me go play. Let me go play. So it was never about the money. And I don't know about you, but I have not met many women. Actually, I'm going to make this claim. I've met no women, unless they're dressed up as men, who money is their key driver. Women, it's not our DNA. We're here for a purpose. Like, there's so many women I know that are making really good money in gray, soulless corporate jobs, and they're miserable. It's not actually what gets us out of bed every day. It's purpose. We're purpose driven, but yes, money is very essential and it gives us options. And we do not want to run somebody else's business. And there's a lot of us doing that, by the way. Women are now, 45% of women are now the breadwinners. That just says that you're running somebody else's business. So, this whole thing around why are we here? We're very purpose led. We need to feel like, our culture is good. We're helping people's lives. We're impacting families. We're impacting community. We're doing all those things. So for
Yeah.
me, that is the key driver. So what can we do to get our business to a point where it's making good money, it's profit and purpose, so that you and I can just be in our genius every day, which is creativity. And it took me some discipline and some time to get to that point where I realized I need to do this. I need to focus. When my focus goes, my energy flows. Put the infrastructure in place. That then becomes a business that makes a huge impact on lives. And then I can go play again.
I love that. I love that. And I think also as well, I'll expand on the purpose. It's passion and purpose, isn't it? Women,
Absolutely.
the thing that really is like something that they're passionate about, like we can work all day, every day on something like that. We have to actually tell ourselves to take some time out when it's that passion that's there. And it just creates this drive within women. And especially if we can see a purpose to that passion as well, that we can see that the world improves and people's lives improve and get better and things. So tell us about your current company or current companies. Do you have more than one?
Well, I have one parent company, which is called Beusail, and it's an ancient Gaelic word, which means ethical, moral, and of good intent. So as you know, I'm in the beauty and wellness space, and every product that I invest in or that I start is vegan, organic, cruelty-free, made locally, nothing out of China, and female founded. So I get a bit of slack on that one, but at the end of the day, we support the industry, over 90% of it, and it's owned 90% by men. So I think that's the best place to start, is to give the industry back to its people, which are women. And then we're also committed to zero waste packaging, which is a process. And then, of course, we have giving embedded in every product that we sell. So, you know, you can buy from L'Oreal and it's made in China and it costs 50 cents to make, and, you know, you're paying this much money. Or you can buy a product from us, which is female founded. You're supporting an indie brand and helping a woman grow their business, and it gives back. And it's made sustainably and ethically. So that's really my thing, is curating that, because women, there was a recent survey done that said that 97% of women said that they would switch to a brand if it was of the same quality and the same affordability if it was female founded and gave back. So why aren't more of them doing it? It's because they actually don't. There's so much false advertising and false claims out there. Everyone's claiming to be transparent and sustainable and all this BS, but they're actually not. So we curated that for them, and we give them a marketplace so that they can buy that. And what's great is every time they buy one, they support a female founder and they give one to the United Nations Sustainability Goals. So it's this beautiful triple, you know, effect. And I really just, for so long, when I speak to women, they feel very powerless at the moment. There's a real lack of trust in everything, from religions to governments to everything, you know, social media. It's just this, it's an all-time record high in the lack of trust. And women are gatherers. Women are the ones who, you know, are connectors. And it's really important for us to come together and support each other in abundance. And we have the power. It's called the purchasing power. We make over 90% of all purchasing decisions. So let's use that power for good. It's not us having to donate money or do anything. It's just using our dollar to vote where we want to go. So that's really my latest project, is Beusail, which is a marketplace where we curate these beautiful brands, and women get to come and use their purchasing power for good. Like it's really that simple. And usually the best things, like a creative, from one creative to the other, usually it's not complicated. It's just doing something a little bit differently. So to me, it's actually not that hard. We just need to take back 1% of the industry, which is $1 billion. $1 billion just in America. 1% of the industry is $1 billion, which goes to women-founded businesses, and it creates 10 million impacts to the UN. That's 1%. That doesn't seem hard to me. Or am I being delusional?
No. I think the people that others will call a little bit crazy are the ones that change the world, right? I've never seen a fully sane person change the world yet. It's always been someone who has thought differently, who has made, look at Steve Jobs, for instance. I mean, the
Mm.
guy didn't even finish university. He spent most of it looking up through the trees, you know, then dropped out, but he said that was the best thing ever. Did a calligraphy class, which is why we now have fonts on computers, you know, all of these little dots connected for him, and it made no sense in the logical world, but it made every piece of sense in the creative world.
People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. It's very simple. We're still
Yeah.
humans. We're still in a meat suit. We're not that complicated. You know, we want connection. We want things, the things that we buy are an extension of our values. So, and women want to connect with that. They're very sick of this whole influencer being paid to post stuff. And to be honest, I don't want my kids to see that that's a career option for them, you know? So for me,
Yeah.
it's all about authenticity, about going back to tribes and community, like neighbors, like where you ask a friend, what do you suggest? And I think we're coming full circle. I know that's very hippie of me. Maybe this is the hippie Australian in me, but I feel we're doing full circle. We're going back to real connections in time, which is what we're doing at Beusail. We're a community. We don't just sell products. Actually, that's a secondary thing. What we actually do is curate circles. It's called circles, and women come together, 9 to 13 women, and they connect on a deeper level, and they get to explore, you know, spirituality and mindfulness, and we do weekly meditations and yoga, and we go deeper, and we actually support each other in a small group of friends, and deep friendships come out of that. We need to go back to those pods, those circles, you know, where we go to the markets and, you know, support each other, and the person down the road, you know, hasn't, you know, we all turn up with a plate of food, you know, we're getting back to that. So that's really what Beusail is about. Community. We start with community first. We're connecting women from all over the world, you know, all different backgrounds, but shared values. And then we're saying, by the way, shift your behavior. So, you know, again, it's a little bit different, but I'm sick of lining the pockets of Google and Zuckerberg, to be honest. So this is how we need to sell: one-on-one community.
I think I mean, I've always had word of mouth as my advertisement, because my first businesses, they never worked, because I had an audience that was the MTV audience. That was my very first businesses. They were the MTV generation, so they didn't really read newspapers. They were the early adopters of the mobile phones. So in 2000, we pioneered text message marketing, and it was so like avant-garde and new and out there, that my my little 16-year-old Saturday girl on a Saturday would spend on a little Nokia 3510, have to put them out by hand. And then I went to a guy and explained what I wanted, and I said, wouldn't it be cool if I could just go to a computer, write my message, and send it to the whole list? He said, well, it doesn't exist. And I said, well, this is why I'm here. I'd like you to create it. And he was like, it'll never catch on. I said, yeah, I really think it will, you know. And so he created for me in 2001, he created a platform, which 5 years later he sold for millions, based on the idea that I could bulk text message people.
Wow.
And our marketing back then was like, it got to a stage, it was so ridiculous. Our list had grown so big, and it was all mobile numbers. So our list of mobile numbers had grown so big that we
Which is
actually
the best asset, by the way.
It was amazing. And it grew so big we couldn't keep up with the stores. So we actually had to message in segments, because it was 87% effective, which meant if we sent 100 text messages, our stores would have 87 people showing up in the stores to purchase or to look or browse and have a shopping experience. So in the end, our stores ended up getting so overwhelmed that we actually had to segment out and do it in segments. So
like filters. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
And so I'm telling you a little hint: community channel marketing community, as in bringing community together offline, not on social media channels. So doing it through other networks and through in-person connections, that's the next wave. Like you saw, I see the same thing. So I'm very much into trends, and I'm a creative, and I don't like to follow the rules, and I don't like it when I don't have control over what my cost per acquisition is. So, and I can't ring him up and say, hey Google, I've got a problem. I'd like to talk to you about the values of your company. Like I don't like that. So, you know, for me, it's that community. It's women connecting together, almost that word of mouth stuff, but on a bigger scale, because we're together for a shared mission, which is women supporting women who give back. It's that simple. So to me, it's really obvious. And I think that's the next wave. So I look forward to the day that you say, oh, I remember interviewing her, and now everybody's doing that community channel marketing. So
I did. Yes.
It's good for the planet.
Yeah, I love that. And I mean, it is. And it's something that we've used in our early days. But I live in the north of Scotland. So for me, the internet has been a godsend, because we've just moved house from a smaller village to a city, but still a small city. So, but our village, we had 1,500 people in our village, and we had over 6,000 people globally enrolled in our online program. So we actually had 4 times the amount. And I think without the internet, living where I live, I don't feel like I would ever have been able to build that community or reach those people. And so for me, I do love my internet, but I do love in-person things as well. So we do retreats and stuff, which is amazing. But I want to ask you,
right? You really do.
Yes,
and
definitely.
One thing that I talk about in my book is do not be restricted by your territory, which is really important. Seek out like-minded, like-valued people. So you first need to know what your values are. And they rarely change in your life. And, you know, one of mine is creativity. Go figure. Do the opposite. Flexibility and freedom. I love to travel. I don't like to be in one place. So a brick and mortar business is never going to suit me. Impact is another one of mine. So when you look at, you know, my business and you look at my values, you go, oh, that makes sense. Why she's doing what she's doing. So if you you seek out like-minded people based on your values, and you don't make territory a place, then you find ways to come together anyway. Like, I think you're friggin' amazing. Like, I would come visit you just because it's you, as opposed to, oh, I have to put up with the mums at school because that's who I'm with. So
exactly. Yes,
don't
I
think
love
that way. Don't think territory, think tribe. Like, think of you. Who are your like-minded people? Go seek them out. Forget about, oh my God, it's like love. Everyone always goes, oh, it's never going to work. He lives there and I live here. No, forget that. Get your values right, fall in love, and then figure out the other stuff around it. So,
I love it.
Anyway.
Take me to do the opposite. Like, my little maverick heart goes, I love that. So tell me about your value of do the opposite. How's that shown up for you in your life?
Well, I think I don't like to copy what other people have done. I find it really uncreative and kind of plagiarism. And the other thing is if everyone is doing zig, then I want to do zag, because how do you get noticed in a marketplace if you're doing what everybody else does? And then on top of that, a lot of things that everyone else is doing don't align to my values. So I kind of go, ooh, that doesn't feel right. And, we've got to really remember that women are very governed by their chakras and, their gut instinct and all those sorts of things that we're told to leave at the front door in business. But I actually think that's our secret weapon. So, what I think is really amazing about women in business is we show up with our head and heart. And when the two are in coherency, it's like a 10x. And I know Grant Cardone talks about 10x, whatever. You can have your jets, you can have your whatever, your guns. What I'm interested in is, what happens when these two are connected, because that's really powerful. But we're told not to do that. But then we also have our gut instinct, which is our core chakra. And that is our intuition. We're just really good at that. So I tend to go with that, and I look at what other people are doing and I go, oh, that doesn't fit with me. And then I go, well, what does? And it's a very simple exercise for me. So for instance, Beusail, when we first started the company, we were approached, by an MLM, or a network marketing company. And they said, we want you to bring your why to us. It was huge opportunity, massive. But then when I looked at everything that MLM stood for, 80% of women quit in the first 30 days, 90% of women don't make money, 97% of women, have to pay. I was like, so you're painting this dream of this side hustle, but 3% of people actually make it. So then I went, oh, that's interesting. And then me being me, I go, okay, how do I do the opposite? And then I started, so I write down all the things that don't serve the women. And then I look at how can we flip that and look at the other side. So I would go, okay, they've got to recruit and there's layers and all that sort of stuff. And they don't get to 5% commission on average within 13 months. I go, you know what? I'm giving retail. I'm on home shopping in America, right? QVC and things like that. They take 50% plus. So I'm like, and then retailers like in Nordstrom, they take 30 plus. So I went, well, if I'm giving them that money, why don't I just give it to women? So then I just went, I'm just going to give women 30% commission on every sale, repeat, first, subscription. And then can you imagine how that builds up over time? So then I look at the next thing. So I go line by line on all the things that they do. And then I go, does that serve the person that we're trying to serve, which is women and families? And then I go, no. And then I go, how can I do the opposite? And then I just find it's actually not that hard. It's kind of just a process of, and then I go to my business partner who's the integrator and I go, this is my wish list. And she goes, are you kidding me? And I'm like, yeah. And she's like, you do realize there's no tech for this and no one's doing this. And I'm like, yes, I know that. And she goes, leave it with me. I totally agree with what you're saying. Let me figure out the tech. And then she goes away and she's a genius, by the way, like the genius integrator. And she just figures it out. And then she comes back to me and says, this is how we're going to do it. We're going to use AI technology that tags the customer to that woman. And then every time that person comes back and buys, they get 30%. And that means that if they do 20 sales a month, that's $4,000 in commission per month, every single month. And I'm like, now women have options, So I get really excited by going, I
love it.
Do you know what I mean? Like, just think the opposite. Write down a list of what everybody else in your industry is doing and then flip it. Not for your own good, but for your audience's good. So this is what they're doing. And Uber did that, right? Smelly taxis. All they I swear they sat down and they did the whole list and then they went, what's the opposite of that? Which is kind of cool.
I think, and it's that innovation, isn't it? It's that what's the next breath? What's the next inhalation? What's the next exhalation of that industry? And that's what creates the cutting edge. And I love that. My brain's like going right now.
I can see. And what's really interesting is that we need to stop accepting the norm because social, tells us that that's the norm. So someone said to me the other day, because I turn up on live TV on home shopping with no makeup on. So I'm really quick because I don't need hair or makeup. I just go straight on set. And someone said to me, oh my God, like, why would you do that? I said, because everybody else is turning up perfect. And I'm going to turn up as a 45-year-old and go, this is how I'm addressing. This is why I have good hair. This is what I'm doing. This is my skin with makeup off. Like, how do you show up and do what everybody else isn't doing? Like, it takes some courage, but I think it's important to do that because, it's authentic. Like, don't you think?
It's something that Marianne Williamson said in a quote that lots of people have taken from this quote, but it was made famous by Nelson Mandela. And I think it's like, when we allow our light to shine, it gives permission for other people to do the same. And it's that unwritten permission, you know, like you're seeing this person and but they're just like me, but I wasn't putting myself out there, but they're just, wow, and she's got this going on and this going on, and I've got that going on, and then suddenly it gives that permission that, oh well, it's okay for me to succeed as well, you know. And I think that's, and it's not a permission that we, like queens, bestow on other people, right? Like, it's by us being us in the authenticity of the energy that gives somebody else, where they get to the point where they give themselves the permission.
And it's totally about us, by the way. So at the end of the day, you know, perfection. So the opposite of Beusail, just so you know, it's an ancient Gaelic word. So it's really sad that I was able to trademark that. The fact that it's actually been forgotten in time. So the opposite to Beusail is what's called Besuk. And Besuk means, so when we're talking about the opposites, so keeping with that theme, Besuk is excess at any cost. So you against me in competition to the death, ultimate perfection, you know, all this sort of stuff. And I think the world is very much that way. But you know what, as a 45-year-old woman who's never dyed her hair, who's got quite a few grays showing through now, I just want to age with ease, grace, and courage. So how do we show up in a state of Beusail, which is ethical, moral, good intent, ease, grace, courage, and just be okay with that? So we need to remember that back in the day, there were elders, there were different people, played different roles as they got older. And we've forgotten that even though I feel like a 20-year-old at heart, I'm still an elder. I'm still a mother to 2 young daughters, and I'm okay with that. So if I can show up and say it's okay, we don't need to strive for perfection all the time, and be vulnerable, it gives other people permission to do the same. And if I can show up and say, hey, guess what, if you're a creative and you cry in front of your staff because you're having a bad day, and you share everything with them, that's not a bad thing. That's how you create culture, because there's no hierarchy. You're in this together. You know, you're building something powerful. Just show up as you. That is the magic, not all this crap that we think we have to be. So the more we can show up and just, you know, go, you know what, I'm an 8-figure entrepreneur, but you know what, I'm a country girl and I swear like a trooper. And I don't have an MBA. And I think I'm going to impact the planet before this lifetime is over. So yeah, who's going to join me?
You know, I'm like, up for that. Yes, sign me up. Sign me up. I am up for that. It's so true though. And this is what we've come here for, is the ability to create what is in our hearts, what we're passionate about. And I feel like that is the magic of a 7-figure and beyond business, is that we do bring something that the world has never seen before. And here's the secret sauce, right? That you are a unique being in a planet of 7.9 billion people. It's only you here that's ever going to be you, that's ever going to look like you, sound like you, you know, really like have your experiences to draw from, have your filter in which you look through the life and see life. And so our greatest gift to this planet is to be ourselves. And you're right, you know, like one of the things that I talk about a lot with my clients and my students is like, if you really strive for that perfection of above all other things, what you end up with is a finished product yourself that's like Teflon. Nothing sticks. Nothing, you know, like nobody's magnetized. It's just, you're just like the Teflon of the world, because what you presented is not really real. Whereas when you are really giving yourself that full permission to be yourself, which you can still clearly see in your living, breathing, embodying this energy, it is magnetic. Like it is magnetizing. And I know that anybody listening to this episode, they're going to be like, what is this Beusail? Let me Google all the things, right? Let me see what it is, because that's the magnetism. And that's the divine feminine way of marketing a business, is when, if we really, really are in with our intrinsical nature, if we're really in alignment with that, that is the magnetism of really, because we're putting something into the world just by us being us unapologetically that the world hasn't seen before. And that's the magic. That is the magic.
Yeah. And you know what? My mentor, Jeff Hoffman, who started Priceline, you know, like he tens of billions of dollars. I don't even know. I don't really care. He's just a good human. One philanthropist of the year a couple of years ago, he said to me, Tamara, freak them in or freak them out. And I was just like, oh my God. He's like, just show up and be yourself and freak them in or freak them out. So I'm okay with it. I'm spiritual. I'm in business. I believe in the feminine divine in business. I want to help more women get into business, because guess what? 9 to 5 does not serve us. I'm anti-multinational. I don't care. Like, business needs to solve the world's problems, not governments. That's who I am. And if you don't align to that, that's fine. Go find somebody else that you do. If you're into the hustle, if you honestly believe in your core that you can make $1 million and get to 6 figures in that much time, we both know that's not how you start a garden. You need to sow the seeds. You need to start by focusing on 4 and 5 figures. Otherwise, we end up with feast and famine, right? We end up with 1 out of 100.
Amen.
And we can't afford for 1 out of 100 women to start a business and the 99 fail. We've already got a big friggin' gap, this big in female entrepreneurship. So we cannot afford to say, hey, go for the $1 million and 9 of you will fail and 1 of you succeed. We need to be focusing and sowing the seeds and going, honey, let me support you to get to 4 and 5 figures, so you have options, so you can quit your job and focus on whatever it is that you want to start. Then from 4 and 5 figures, let me teach you the fundamentals of business so that you can then go to 6 figures. But we're not going to do it, and we're not going to mortgage the house, and we're not going to be reckless, because we don't do that.
And you don't need to sell a kidney.
You don't have to. And then from there, we're going to say, okay, now that you're at $1 million, let me connect you with the right people and get you the right capital, because there's dirty money. Let's get you the right capital to get you to the next stage. It's all about these little seeds. But when you present to a woman, it's be a multi-millionaire overnight and, you know, risk everything and, you know, take the plunge. And that's not us. That's not in our nature to sacrifice our family and our flow for the sake of it. Good night, darling. Do you want a kiss? But, you know, at the end of the day, let's start with 4 and 5. Good night, darling. It's nighttime here. Bye, baby.
Good night.
And then we blend everything. Families, everything has permission. I turn up to board meetings and my children are on my lap. I don't care. It's like, I'm a parent. That's how it is. So we have everyone. We have kids at our family retreats. Like when we do management meetings, the whole family comes. That's how it should be. You blend everything, because balance doesn't work, by the way. Because all that means is you're taking from one side to the other and there's no self. Throw it all in the middle. If you're your authentic self, you can show up with your kids, you can show up with your husband, you can show up in your house. There's no segregation. If I believe that you're an authentic person, then you're an authentic person in your home, in your business, in every place and space that you show up in. So we blend everything. Every one of my team members knows my home address, has probably been to my house, and we all just blend it. And when they have babies, we're all talking about that. Everything's involved. Family first. And Warren Rushton said that to me. He's one of my lecturers at MIT when I did the Birthing of Giants. He said, you are not a success in business if you fail at home. So if women who are in business are listening and trying to figure out how to juggle the two, don't. Just put them all in the same pot and do not ask for permission, because you are the genius. You're driving this ship. And if people have a problem with that, they can go join a soulless business over there that's grey, and they can climb that ladder all they want, but that's not culture. You can join this one, and there's so many men who want to blend. Trust me, There's so many men who go, oh my God, I get to be me, and I get to talk about my kids at work, and I get to bring them to work, or I get to leave early, and you're going to work my roster around me being more involved with my children. Hell yes. Absolutely. Just get the stuff done that needs to be done. I don't care when you do it, just make sure it gets done. It's that simple. But yeah, as you can tell,
and I think it's such a like a control thing, isn't it? It must be done in this set pocket of time. Why? Because it's like, why not work when you feel most productive? Why not do when you feel most inspired? As long as one of the big things in growing my business has been letting go of that control and really allowing it to be easy, and allowing it to be like letting go of the how and really just focusing on, this is the result that I desire. Fill your boots. As long as we do it ethically, fill your boots. How we get there,
Trust. This comes back to what I was saying before. Record low trust levels than ever in humanity. Record low. We don't trust enough people.
That's something that my spirit team teach a lot on. So I channel a collective consciousness, and it's one of the things that my spirit team teach on. And the reason it's at a record low is because the consciousness is at a record high. So the game just gets harder, right? Like it's like Tetris is what I use as an example, because it's like be really boring if we were on level 1 for like 10 years. Like it gets harder each year, right? And this is why we're seeing such, in fact, I did a live on this yesterday, is that this is why we're seeing such massive division in the world right now, because everything is, polarizing and dividing. The game is, can you remember the connection when everything is calling you to take a side, to be on one of the polarities? Can you remember? And one of the teachings that I used yesterday in the live was, because yesterday it came to me that I'd heard this teaching many, many times, and it was from Buddha, and it said, every human being just wants to love and be loved. And yesterday, I feel like I finally understood the magnitude of that simple piece of teaching, because that is, if we can remember that in our daily lives, when we're in that, what I call judgy McJudgy mode, where we're judging others, if we can remember, actually, ultimately, when you scrape all the crap away, that is a human that just wants to love and be loved, just like I do. And if we can, that is a connecting force. And I realized the power of those words yesterday. That really hit me yesterday, because I had so many of my clients really struggling with the division in this world right now. And as you said, the trust being at an all-time low, and who do I believe? And, all of these things. And it's like,
rise above it.
Yeah.
Don't absolutely. Make it so complicated. Just rise above it. And I look at everything in the filter of, are they showing up in a state of Beusail, which is love, community, serving others before themselves, trust and respect? Are they showing up in that, or are they showing up in Beusail, which is self-serving, agenda-driven, I, all about me, that sort of stuff? We've really overcomplicated a lot of things. So for me, when I can't make a decision, I go, is this person showing up in a state of Beusail or Beusail? And that's how I hire people. That's how I do strategic partnerships. I don't look at the size of the deal. And sometimes people think I'm mad. They're like, what do you mean you said no to that person? Do you know how big they are? I said, I don't care. They showed up and they talked about they're all about their agenda. Their company is not ethical. It's everything screams Beusail. It's a no. And I think the issue is that we're getting it from a social level, and they're trying to actually divide us. And then we're getting it from a mental level with the voices in our head. So we need a little way to filter it and just go, what does our gut instinct say? Is this a right or a wrong? Is this Beusail or Beusail? That's, a lot of people say to me, how do you do all the things you do? How do you, do the UN stuff and the YPO stuff and the, all the businesses that you invest in and, this? And I'm like, because I don't overcomplicate things. I trust my gut. It's a filter of Beusail or Beusail. It's a yes or a no. And people will make that mean whatever they want to make that mean. I don't care. But for me, I sleep well at night. I know what's good for us. I speak to my business partner all day long. We're kindred spirits. We must have known each other in a past lifetime because we finish each other's sentences. And, you know, I know that Beusail, my business isn't about me. It will go on to create other things that are beyond me. And that's a legacy. So it's kind of growing up. It's kind of, you know, I've actually finally grown up, I think. At 45, I've finally grown up.
I know. I actually felt that. I bought this house this year. We've only been in here 5 weeks, and I was like, I just felt like, oh my God, I feel like I've just grown up. I own house and land now, so I'm like, oh my God.
Honey, it's like, the bank's problem. It's the bank's problem, not yours. That's what I tell everyone.
So I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, wow, how did that happen? I'm like, finally an adult woman at 46. So, but I love using that filter, because that's something that I actually teach in one of my courses. We call it GSP, global soul positioning. Like, what's your is it, you know, is it an inner yes or is it an inner no? And like, your body is not going to lie. And it's like, you've taken that to the kind of a next level, and like, you've got the Beusail and the Besuk and the meanings of those things. And what am I feeling in this moment? Is this in alignment where I want to go, which is Beusail? Or is this person or situation, place, anything? You can apply it to anything. Does that feel quite Besuk?
And it's not mine.
I love this.
It's actually not mine. It's actually how they used to look at it through ancient Gaelic times. So this isn't me. This is, you know, I think sometimes we forget to look at the past lessons and learn from that. We just keep repeating shit all the time. And when I went back and I had a look at how they looked at things, it was just about honoring Mother Earth. And are you showing up in a state of Beusail or Besuk? So this isn't my doing. This is just stuff that I researched. And I went, that makes sense to me, because it's not, there's no denominator there. There's no religion. There's no triggers. There's no agendas. There's no other stuff. It's just a state of being with nobody's agenda. So to me, I really love that analogy, because if you're showing up if you're living a life of Beusail and you're honoring the Earth Mother, then you never take more than you need. And we've gone way beyond that as humanity. Like, we take way more than we need. And so, you know, if Besuk is child labor, Besuk is, you know, doing deforestation, Besuk is lots of things, you know, even gender equality.
Just gnarly business practices, really, just really gnarly business practices. And the win at any cost, isn't it? It's the win at any cost.
And let's not forget, the top 3,000 companies in the world do $2 trillion worth of damage to the environment per year. So that's for our children to have to deal with. So if somebody doesn't stand up and go, actually, we've got the purchasing power, we do not vote for you anymore with our dollar, and we're supporting people who take what from the earth, they take what they need and then they give it back, and they're sustainable. And sustainability is a journey. We're still waiting for technology to catch up in a lot of ways. But if we push that agenda, then they won't have a choice. I don't think we wait for them in their legislation. We just show them how it's done as women, use our little dollar as a vote, and show them what it looks like.
My mum would love you. So my mum was an activist growing up, and we weren't allowed to buy anything from the South African companies that supported an apartheid. And we're talking like this was in the 80s. And when we came from Stockholm to Inverness in the north of Scotland, people were like, what? And you know, and I remember my mum was like, no, we do not support. And there was like this big list of companies, and we just do not support them because we are voting with our money. We are voting with our money. And it's something that I have brought with me from that time in my childhood right the way through into my future, because I think, yes, what you choose to spend on is you voting with that. You are, like, it's supply and demand. And if you keep creating the supply, the gnarly crappiness that you maybe in your heart don't agree with, well, you're paying for it. You're literally keeping them, you're sustaining them. And I love how ahead of her time my mom was in the fact that she
she was
was
a woman
really,
of the 60s, right?
absolutely, absolutely. And she
I
was
think there's
really,
a revival of the 60s. I think we're going back to that. I think we're all about hang on.
well, my mom always said that the biggest threat to any government in the world was the hippie movement, because a community united in love are very, very difficult to control. And a community united in fear, as we have all witnessed in the last couple of years,
Very
is a
easy.
very easy to control community. And a community connected in love, connected in mutual respect, connected in the betterment, and the what our company's tagline is, together we thrive. And and connected in those values, that is a very difficult population to control. And they're going to do what they're going to do, and they're going to do
60s. You and me, babe. Let's go.
and I will not be
and
averse
we're
to the
naming
passion
it.
either.
We're naming the festival after your mother. I've decided.
I love it. I love it. I love it.
Oh, it's so true though.
It's so
like here
beautiful.
we are. We're repeating the same thing. Like I think it's anyway, every now and again we just got to show them who wins, which is love and people.
I do. And I always do feel that love is always going to be more powerful and stronger than the rest. So it's beautiful.
I can't wait to meet your mother.
I know
she's going on my next lifetime, in my next, when I go, she's on my list of people to meet and transition.
Oh,
she's
beautiful.
freaking cool.
She's amazing. She's amazing. She actually, we've actually just hired her. She works in my company now. So she makes sure that all my clients get beautiful recognition for when they come and spend with us, that they get a beautiful card or gift or something.
Meet her. I love her already.
And I thought, you know what? Who is going to do this job and do it in the way that I would do it? And who's going to do this job and pour love into these things? And there was only one woman for the job. So I'm so happy.
Oh my goodness. That's a keeper. That's ridiculous.
So it was so beautiful to be able to say,
well, give her a hug from me.
I will, definitely.
I love her already.
I have loved this conversation, Tamara. Oh my goodness. I know that we could probably be on here all night, but can you please tell people where they can find you online? Where do you like to hang out online, so that if somebody wanted to follow you listening to this and they're like, how can I follow this lady? We're going to link everything below, but where's your favorite places to be found?
Like I said, I'm a country girl, so I like human connections. So I would invite anyone to come and join a gathering with me. We do new moon and full moon intentions, where we set intentions for ourselves, which are all based around prosperity and purpose. And come, and this is offline. This is where we get together on Zoom and we really lean in to each other as a community. So that would be my recommendations. Yes, you can look me up. I've got 200,000 followers. You can buy my book from Wiley. You can do all that stuff.
What's your book called?
Balance is BS.
Oh, I love that.
How to have a work-life blend. So, but all of that stuff is stuff, right? You're just going to end up with evergreen. I think everybody is over evergreen. We need to get back to connection. So I actually want to meet, if people are genuinely connected with this conversation, I want to meet them in person. So come and join a gathering. Let's hang out together, because when our energy comes together in real time, that's really when the magic happens. You know that. You're a facilitator of magic, right? Absolutely. So I'm not going to point you to my Instagram or whatever it is. I think just come and say hi and introduce yourself, and I want to meet people. That's how we're going to do it. So anyway, you can look up Beusail, and you can join any free gathering. So it's BU and Sail, ironically, is the spelling. So BEUSAIL. As opposed to Besook, guess what that sounds like? BU and suck. I don't know if they meant that in the ancient Gaelic times, but that's how I interpret it. It's kind of funny.
It's amazing. I'm obsessed with things like the etymology of words. When we look at the ancient meanings of where did that word come from? What's the origin? One of the ones that have recently blown my mind is paradise, which is such a beautiful word. And we're like, oh, that's so exciting. Well, paradise first sort of made its appearance in the Bible. But what paradise actually means is a work pen.
A what?
So a work pen, for where you keep farm animals.
Really?
So when Adam and Eve lived in a paradise, they lived in an animal pen, right? So it puts an entire different spin on the story. And then the word worker means it has a connotation of sacrifice for another person. So it's so fascinating when you look at, and
that
another
one sounds
word,
realistic. And you know what? Sometimes when you go to places that are paradise, like tropical islands, and we pay a fortune for the 5, star. Yeah, but yes and no. You go into those communities and they're very happy. They live on the beach after all, and self-sufficient. There's something to be said in that. So maybe their paradise was their paradise. Possibly.
I don't know. I just think it's funny. There's really, really funny stories, I think, sometimes of when you see under what is, and it's literally hidden in plain sight. A truth that is hidden in plain sight.
Yeah, but words are words. I think sometimes they're worse than good. I actually think it's all about connection. We can talk about all sorts of stuff, but at the end of the day, mental health and all that sort of stuff, the number one thing that makes everyone feel better is a hug, and that ain't going away. No, we can meditate, we can yoga, we can do whatever.
Absolutely,
but still,
we can totally agree with that.
To increase endorphins is a hug. So
I love that.
Anyway, yeah,
I'm very much a hugsy person.
Oh yes, I can't wait to give you a hug. I'm going to come visit you in your new house. Congratulations.
Thank you. We sit on beautiful 2 acres of gorgeous woodland, and it's so paradise to use that word, but it's just beautiful. It's just so gorgeous, and it's just makes me breathe. It's a place.
Well, you're welcome in my house as well.
I'd love to.
We have the ocean at the front and the hills, the beautiful hills, and we have even little kangaroos that come onto our property every night.
Well, that I would love to see in person, as little kangaroos. That's not a sight I've ever seen in Scotland.
Oh gosh, no, we see them every day.
We have Highland cows.
Oh yes, they're bigger.
A lot bigger.
Not much, but yeah. Well, I'm so glad our worlds collided.
Thank you so much.
Yes,
absolutely.